California's median home price is expected to climb to around $950,000 in 2026, continuing a trend of setting new records year after year. But there is a side of the market that rarely makes the headlines. Hidden behind those impressive statewide figures are communities where housing values are moving in the exact opposite direction. In these areas, sellers are making steep price cuts. Properties are lingering on the market for months. Inventory continues to grow, and buyers are becoming increasingly scarce. This is not a warning about what might happen someday. It is already unfolding across California in 2026. Once you stop looking at the statewide averages and begin examining the numbers city by city, a completely different story starts to emerge. One that challenges the optimistic picture many headlines continue to promote. In today's countdown, we're taking a closer look at 10 California cities where home prices are falling right now. If you already own a home in one of these markets, this information could be extremely important. And if you're considering buying property anywhere in California, you'll want to pay close attention before making your next move. Let's dive in. As California's fifth largest city, Fresno is home to well over 500,000 residents. For years, it earned a reputation as one of the state's most affordable major cities, and that affordability became one of its biggest strengths. Countless buyers who could no longer afford homes along the California coast turned their attention inland, helping Fresno experience years of steady growth. That momentum, however, is beginning to fade. The local housing market is showing clear signs of weakness that are becoming harder to ignore. Today, more than 20% of homes listed for sale in Fresno have already gone through price reductions. In other words, roughly 1 out of every 5 sellers has lowered their asking price because buyers simply are not willing to pay what was originally requested. On the surface, annual home value growth of about 2.4% may appear respectable. But once inflation, which is running near 3%, is taken into account, the picture changes dramatically. In real purchasing power terms, home values are actually slipping instead of gaining ground. Another concern is affordability. Analysts estimate that Fresno's housing market is nearly 12% overvalued, suggesting that prices have climbed well beyond what the area's local economy can comfortably sustain. When the typical household earns around $64,000 per year, while the median home price approaches $380,000, affordability begins to reach its limits. Buyers can stretch their budgets only so far before the financial pressure becomes too much. That adjustment is already happening. Fresno also faces challenges that are unique to California's Central Valley. Many people relocate because housing costs are far lower than those found in coastal cities. But after arriving, some discover a more limited employment market, extremely hot summers, and air quality that regularly ranks among the poorest in the nation. As a result, some newcomers eventually move away, while others decide not to relocate there in the first place. At the same time, homeowners who purchased during the height of the pandemic housing boom are realizing that the wave of eager buyers they expected has slowed considerably. Fresno is not experiencing a full-scale housing collapse, but the market has clearly shifted. The days when a home could be listed and receive multiple competing offers within just a few days are becoming far less common. Bakersfield shares many of the same housing challenges as nearby Fresno, but the situation here is even more concerning. Roughly 22.5% of all homes currently listed for sale have already received price cuts. That works out to nearly 1 in every 4 sellers lowering their asking price in an effort to attract buyers. The city's overvaluation is also significantly higher. Current estimates place Bakersfield's housing market at about 19.4% overvalued, meaning home prices are nearly 20% above what local wages and economic conditions can reasonably support. In a city where the median household income is approximately $63,000, the disconnect between affordability and asking prices continues to grow wider with each passing month. During the pandemic housing boom, Bakersfield became one of California's biggest success stories. Thousands of buyers left Los Angeles and other expensive coastal markets in search of larger homes, lower prices, and more space. That surge in demand pushed home values sharply higher, attracted investors looking for strong returns, and encouraged builders to rapidly expand new residential developments. Now that the migration wave has slowed, the market is facing a very different reality. Inventory has grown, but many sellers are still hoping to receive the premium prices that were common during the pandemic. Buyers, however, are no longer willing to pay those inflated amounts, leaving more homes sitting unsold. The local economy introduces another important risk. For decades, the oil industry has been one of the primary economic drivers in Kern County, providing thousands of well-paying jobs. At the same time, California continues moving toward policies aimed at reducing fossil fuel production and accelerating the transition to cleaner energy. With each new round of environmental regulations, uncertainty grows for workers whose livelihoods depend on the energy sector. That uncertainty inevitably spills into the housing market. When people become less confident about their future employment, they are less likely to purchase a home or stretch their finances to buy at today's prices. Put all of these factors together: slower buyer demand, homes that remain significantly overpriced, rising inventory levels, and an economy facing long-term structural changes, and it becomes clear that Modesto has climbed into the top tier of California cities when it comes to price reductions. The share of homes with lowered asking prices ranks among the highest in the state, putting Modesto alongside markets like Stockton and Riverside, where sellers are increasingly being forced to adjust their expectations. At first glance, home prices still appear to be showing modest annual gains. However, once inflation is factored in and today's values are compared with the market's peak, the picture becomes much less encouraging. Many homeowners have seen most of their equity disappear, and some are now approaching, or have already fallen into, a negative equity position. For decades, Modesto has served as an affordable alternative for people who could no longer afford to buy in the Bay Area. Located roughly 90 minutes east of San Francisco, it became a popular choice for buyers willing to trade a long commute for a significantly lower mortgage payment. That strategy worked well for years, but the shift in workplace policies changed everything. During the pandemic, remote work allowed many Bay Area employees to relocate to cities like Modesto without worrying about the daily drive. As companies gradually began requiring workers to return to the office, that advantage started to disappear. Some homeowners relocated closer to their jobs, while others decided to leave California altogether in search of lower living costs. As those buyers disappeared, so did much of the demand that had fueled Modesto's rapid housing appreciation during the pandemic years. The city also faces challenges beyond housing affordability. Modesto has repeatedly attracted national attention because of its high rate of vehicle thefts, and overall property crime remains well above California's average. Those issues influence more than crime statistics. They shape how potential buyers view the community as a place to invest. Many people hesitate before purchasing a home worth several $100,000 in a city that has built a reputation for having one of the nation's highest rates of auto theft. Meanwhile, the housing market continues to soften. More homes are becoming available, listings are taking longer to sell, and many sellers who initially priced their properties aggressively are returning with significant reductions, often cutting $5,000, $10,000, or even $15,000 from their original asking price, in hopes of attracting an offer. Riverside, home to roughly 315,000 residents, is the largest city in California's Inland Empire. For much of the past decade, it was also one of the fastest-growing housing markets in Southern California. The appeal was easy to understand. Buyers could enjoy Southern California's climate, stay within driving distance of Los Angeles and the coast, and purchase a home for far less than they would pay in many coastal communities. That combination attracted waves of home buyers. Investors poured in as well, pushing competition even higher. During the pandemic housing boom, prices surged as demand dramatically outpaced supply. Today, however, the market has shifted. By the end of 2025, the Inland Empire recorded a 2.5% year-over-year decline in home prices, signaling that the correction had officially begun. In Riverside itself, nearly 24% of all active listings have undergone price reductions, meaning almost 1 out of every 4 sellers has been forced to lower their asking price after discovering buyers were unwilling to pay the original amount. Affordability has become another major concern. Analysts estimate that Riverside's housing market is approximately 18.5% overvalued, while the local price-to-income ratio has climbed to about 6.4. In practical terms, the typical home now costs roughly 6.5 times the area's median household income. For comparison, housing economists generally view a ratio between 3 and 4 as far more sustainable. Riverside is now well above that range, highlighting just how stretched affordability has become. The city's biggest challenge is that its identity has always been built around offering value. For years, buyers accepted longer commutes because the savings on housing were substantial. But as prices continued climbing, that financial advantage gradually disappeared. Once homes in Riverside started approaching the prices found in parts of Los Angeles County, many buyers began asking an obvious question. Why endure a commute of an hour and a half or more if the savings are no longer significant? For many households, the numbers simply stopped making sense. Insurance costs are creating additional pressure. Several areas within Riverside County face elevated wildfire risk, causing homeowners' insurance premiums to rise sharply. In some neighborhoods, insurance companies have reduced coverage or stopped writing new policies altogether. When homeowners suddenly see their insurance bills double, monthly housing costs can increase dramatically, even if their mortgage payment stays exactly the same. A home that once seemed comfortably affordable can quickly become much more difficult to manage. Sacramento, California's capital city, is home to more than 500,000 residents, while the greater metropolitan area has a population exceeding 2 million. Despite its strong government presence and steady population growth, Sacramento now stands out for a very different reason. According to Realtor.com's forecast, it is one of only 3 California housing markets expected to experience a home price decline of at least 3.3% in 2026. That places Sacramento among the weakest projected housing markets not only in California, but across the entire country. The city's housing boom during the pandemic was nothing short of remarkable. As remote work became the norm, thousands of Bay Area professionals began searching for larger homes and a lower cost of living. Sacramento quickly became one of their favorite destinations. Many homeowners sold small condos in San Francisco for close to $1 million, then purchased spacious 4-bedroom homes in Sacramento for around $500,000, often walking away with substantial cash still in hand. That wave of migration fueled one of the fastest price increases in the region. Between 2019 and 2022, the median home price climbed from roughly $350,000 to more than $500,000, an increase of about 40% in only 3 years. Today, however, those extraordinary gains are beginning to unwind. The flow of new buyers has slowed considerably. As more employers required workers to return to the office, some former remote employees relocated closer to the Bay Area. Others discovered that Sacramento's long, extremely hot summers were not the lifestyle they had imagined and chose to move elsewhere. Meanwhile, many homeowners who purchased near the peak of the market are watching conditions gradually weaken around them. Housing inventory continues to rise, more properties are available for sale, and the pace of transactions has failed to keep up with the growing supply. Homes are taking longer to sell, and the condominium market has been especially affected. Condos in downtown Sacramento that attracted intense buyer interest during the remote work boom are now seeing repeated price reductions as demand from work-from-home buyers continues to fade. Sacramento certainly benefits from one important advantage. The presence of California's state government provides a large and relatively stable employment base. Even so, that stability alone has not been enough to support the elevated home values created during the pandemic buying frenzy. San Jose, the heart of Silicon Valley, is California's third-largest city with a population of more than 1 million people. It has long been one of the most expensive housing markets in the United States. Yet despite its reputation, San Jose recently recorded one of the sharpest median home price declines of any major American city, with prices falling 5.5% year over year. In a market where the median home price sits at roughly $1.4 million, that decline carries enormous financial consequences. A drop of 5.5% translates into an average loss of approximately $77,000 in home value for the typical homeowner in just a single year. On paper, that represents more than many Americans earn through an entire year's salary. The reasons behind this shift are relatively clear, and they trace back to changes that began during the pandemic. For decades, San Jose's housing market benefited from what many called the proximity premium. Living close to major technology companies such as Apple, Google, Cisco, Adobe, and hundreds of other Silicon Valley employers justified paying extraordinary prices for homes. Buyers accepted those costs because being near their workplace was considered essential. Then remote work changed the equation. The pandemic demonstrated that many software engineers, developers, designers, and other technology professionals could perform their jobs from almost anywhere. Instead of remaining in one of the nation's most expensive metropolitan areas, many relocated to cities such as Austin, Denver, Boise, and Raleigh, where housing costs were dramatically lower. Although some companies eventually required employees to return to the office, many adopted hybrid schedules that only require workers to be on-site a few days each week. That shift caused many people to rethink whether paying Silicon Valley housing prices still made financial sense when a longer commute a couple of times per week became a realistic option. The market also faced another major challenge. Beginning in late 2022 and continuing through 2023 and 2024, widespread layoffs across the technology industry hit the Bay Area particularly hard. When highly paid technology employees lose their jobs, they often postpone buying a home or relocate to less expensive regions. Either outcome reduces the number of active buyers in the local housing market. As demand has weakened, sellers have been forced to compete much more aggressively. Properties that might have attracted 10 or more offers above the asking price during the height of the 2021 housing frenzy are now remaining on the market for weeks. Instead of bidding wars, many sellers receive only 1 or 2 offers, if they receive any at all. Price reductions have become increasingly common as homeowners adjust to a far less competitive market. Interestingly, not every segment of San Jose's housing market is experiencing the same level of pressure. Ukiah is a small community of roughly 16,000 residents located in Mendocino County, about 2 hours north of San Francisco. While it doesn't receive much attention compared to California's larger cities, Zillow's housing forecast suggests that Ukiah is expected to experience one of the sharpest home price declines in Northern California during 2026. For many people outside the region, Ukiah is barely on the map. Nestled in Northern California's wine country just inland from the Mendocino coast, it has long been known as a peaceful agricultural town surrounded by vineyards, rolling hills, and open countryside. During the pandemic housing boom, that quiet lifestyle suddenly became highly desirable. Buyers from the Bay Area, eager for more space, privacy, and larger properties began moving into the area. The increased demand pushed home prices up rapidly. Houses on spacious lots that had previously sold for around $300,000 were suddenly commanding prices closer to $450,000, or even $500,000. The problem is that the wave of buyers responsible for those gains has largely disappeared. Ukiah's location, while attractive to some, also limits its long-term housing demand. Under ideal conditions, the drive to San Francisco takes about 2 hours, but heavy traffic can extend that trip considerably. For many workers, especially those who now spend more time in the office, that commute simply isn't practical. Employment opportunities are another challenge. The local economy is relatively small, relying primarily on agriculture, healthcare, and county government. Unlike larger metropolitan areas, Ukiah does not have a major corporate employer, attracting a steady flow of new residents with high-paying jobs. The town also offers fewer amenities than larger cities. Shopping, restaurants, nightlife, and entertainment options remain fairly limited. During the pandemic, many people viewed that slower pace of life as a major advantage. Today, however, buyers evaluating where they want to settle permanently often place greater value on convenience and access to employment than they did a few years ago. Another factor weighing on the local economy has been the dramatic decline of the cannabis industry. Stockton earns the 3rd spot on this list because the housing data leaves very little room for debate. Realtor.com forecasts that the city will experience a 4.1% decline in home prices during 2026, making it the largest projected drop among California's major metro areas and the 3rd steepest projected decline anywhere in the United States. The local market statistics paint an even more challenging picture. Approximately 25.4% of all homes currently listed for sale in Stockton have already received price reductions. That means more than 1 out of every 4 sellers has lowered their asking price, the highest percentage anywhere in California. Like nearby Modesto and Sacramento, Stockton benefited enormously from the migration of Bay Area buyers during the pandemic. As housing costs along the coast became increasingly unaffordable, many families searched farther inland for better value. Stockton stood out because it offered some of the lowest home prices within commuting distance, making it especially attractive to budget-conscious buyers. That surge in demand fueled a dramatic increase in home values. During the height of the housing boom, median prices climbed from roughly $300,000 to more than $450,000 in a relatively short period. Investors rushed into the market, purchasing homes in large numbers. Many renovation projects became highly profitable, with flippers making cosmetic upgrades and reselling properties for tens of thousands of dollars above their purchase prices. That environment has changed dramatically. Many investors have stepped away from the market, and some flippers are now holding properties that have become much harder to sell. At the same time, traditional homebuyers are facing mortgage interest rates above 6%, making monthly payments significantly more expensive than they were just a few years ago. For households that were already stretching their budgets to afford a home, those higher borrowing costs have pushed ownership out of reach. Stockton also continues to carry the legacy of its financial past. The city's municipal bankruptcy in 2012 remains part of its reputation, even after years of economic recovery and redevelopment efforts. While Stockton has made meaningful progress, many buyers still compare it with nearby alternatives such as Sacramento or Tracy. Concerns about its past financial struggles, combined with higher crime rates, often influence purchasing decisions and encourage buyers to choose other markets instead. That is not to say the city lacks strengths. The revitalization of the downtown waterfront has brought new investment, and the presence of the San Diego may be one of the biggest surprises on this list. For decades, it has been viewed as one of the safest and most resilient real estate markets in the United States. With its year-round mild climate, major military installations, thriving biotechnology sector, strong tourism industry, and the presence of UC San Diego, the city has long been considered a model of economic stability. Yet the latest housing data tells a much different story. According to Realtor.com, San Diego's median home price declined by 6.7%, making it the second largest price drop among major metropolitan areas in the country. Only Austin, Texas, experienced a steeper decline. In a city where a typical home is valued at around $750,000, a 6.7% decrease represents a loss of more than $50,000 in value over the course of a single year. In many parts of the country, that amount would be enough to cover an entire down payment on a home. So how did one of America's strongest housing markets end up in this position? The biggest issue is affordability. During the pandemic, home prices climbed at an extraordinary pace. Values increased so rapidly that they eventually outpaced what even many well-paid households could reasonably afford. Despite San Diego's strong local economy and above-average salaries, the gap between incomes and home prices grew to a level that became increasingly difficult to sustain. When mortgage interest rates moved above 6%, the monthly cost of purchasing a typical home increased dramatically. For thousands of potential buyers, the combination of high prices and higher borrowing costs pushed homeownership beyond reach. Insurance costs have added even more financial pressure. In several parts of San Diego County, particularly communities near wildfire-prone areas in the eastern and northern portions of the county, homeowners' insurance premiums have risen sharply. Some households are now paying 2 or even 3 times what they were paying only a few years ago. Those higher insurance bills increase the total monthly cost of ownership, causing many buyers to reconsider whether purchasing a home still makes financial sense. The condominium market has faced especially strong headwinds. Downtown San Diego condos, along with units in communities such as National City and Chula Vista, have experienced more frequent price reductions and longer selling times. Many investors who purchased condominiums expecting strong rental returns are discovering that today's numbers no longer add up. Between higher mortgage payments, rapidly increasing homeowners association fees, rising insurance premiums, and rental income that has failed to keep pace with expenses, many investment properties are generating far lower returns than expected. The financial equation that looked attractive during the pandemic has become much less favorable. Topping the list is a place that many people have never even heard of: California City. Despite sounding like a generic nickname, it is an actual incorporated city located in Kern County, roughly 100 miles north of Los Angeles, in the heart of the Mojave Desert. Right now, it holds an unfortunate distinction. According to Redfin, California City is experiencing the steepest home price decline anywhere in the state, with median sale prices falling 13.8% year over year. The slowdown is visible in more than just prices. Last year, homes typically sold in about 70 days. Today, the average listing remains on the market for roughly 113 days, while the median sale price has fallen to approximately $278,000 and continues to trend lower. The city's history is unlike almost anywhere else in California. California City was established during the 1950s by a developer with an extraordinarily ambitious vision. His goal was to create a massive planned community that could one day rival Los Angeles in both size and importance. To prepare for that future, an enormous network of streets and residential subdivisions was laid out across nearly 200 square miles of desert. Because of that design, California City is now the third largest city in California by land area, larger than both Bakersfield and Fresno. Yet much of that land remains completely undeveloped. Visitors can drive for miles along paved roads, lined with street signs, curbs, and fire hydrants, only to find empty lots stretching toward the horizon. Entire neighborhoods were mapped out decades ago, but many were never built. The grand vision that inspired the city's creation simply never became reality. Today, only about 14,000 people live within that enormous footprint. Like many inexpensive housing markets, California City experienced a surge of interest during the pandemic. Investors searching for low-cost real estate and remote workers looking for affordable homes saw an opportunity. Property values rose quickly, and speculators purchased land expecting rapid population growth and future development. That anticipated growth never arrived. Now, many of those same investors are attempting to sell properties in a market where buyer demand has largely disappeared. The city's limited infrastructure also makes it difficult to attract new residents. Local amenities are modest, with only a small number of stores, restaurants, and essential services. For a wider selection of shopping, healthcare, and employment opportunities, residents often travel to Lancaster, located about 45 minutes to the south. Employment options are equally limited. Much of the local economy depends on nearby Edwards Air Force Base, the state prison system, and a handful of smaller employers. Outside of those sectors, job opportunities are relatively scarce.